welcome back to the A.C.E Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham, again with Coach Hamilton. Coach, today we have an interesting topic. We're going to be going over coaching etiquette. Coaching etiquette. Not necessarily, some do's and don'ts. More about how you and I react to different situations. Most of these are things we've interacted with in the past in different games or discussions with other coaches that they've dealt with. Nothing too crazy. Most of the stuff's pretty common in ordinary situations, but we've seen different reactions from different coaches, opposing coaches, or whatever it may be, and we're kind of just going to discuss, I guess, our viewpoint or maybe what we're thinking at that point in time, and maybe we had differing reactions to different situations and kind of how, maybe we can discuss why coaches act certain ways or maybe why we felt a certain way. So, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here, Coach, but this is really just scenarios. How would you respond or act in different situations during a game, before a game, or whatever it may be, Coach?
Yeah, lots of good stuff here, and we're going to bring up lots of scenarios, lots of different examples that either you and I have dealt with or we know that a lot of coaches have dealt with before. What I like about this conversation, what I think our listeners will like about this conversation is you and I are very good friends, but when it comes to coaching, we kind of have two different styles. We kind of do things.
Oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't say like drastically opposite, but the way you and I coach, there are some differences there.
Absolutely.
Not that one is right and the other isn't, but I think you're going to hear as we go through these scenarios several different, what's the word I'm looking for? Several different answers to these questions.
Yeah, and I like that you brought that up here. It's not that either one is coaching the right way or someone's the wrong way. You can coach any sport with different personalities, different tactics, different ways of approaching players and different ways of approaching parents. And the whole object of this is, not everybody's the same and not everyone's going to do things the same way. And not like there's anything wrong with that. You and I deal with this as far as players and parents who leave clubs saying, I'm leaving it because I don't like the way you coach. Right? Well, doesn't mean you got to be rude or mean about it. Maybe your player and that coach just have different ways of interacting, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let's get down to here, Coach. Before we get started here, we want to give a shout out. This show is brought to you by the A.C.E Car Wash, locally owned and operated here in Richmond, Kentucky. Please go and visit them for all your car washing needs. Coach, let's get down to scenario number one.
Yeah, this one actually happened to me very recently in an indoor game, and that's kind of what brought up you and I talking about this, because I kind of came to you and I was like, hey, what would you do in this moment? Basically what happened is we're getting ready, set to kick off. The opposing coach and referee walk over to me. I call my girls off the field. Hey, we're going to start. And the coach says, hey, I'm down a player. I don't have enough players to field a full field. So I think he was expecting me to say, okay, we'll play a man down as well.
Sure.
The referee stepped in and said, we can still play. You don't have to play a man down.
Oh, right.
It is up to you how you want to do it. So I actually said, let me go talk to my girls. So I walked over. I explained this scenario to them. If you would have asked me, I would have said, no, sorry, we're playing our full field. I would not have gone down a player. Now, there's more that goes along with that, but my girls actually decided, no, we want to make it even. So we ended up matching them. But me personally, I would play my full roster. I'd play my full field.
And I'm assuming this is a league season game. Scores being taken, recorded, win-loss records are being plotted. I actually had this happen years ago when I was coaching a girls' club team. It was high school level. I think they were a U16 team, U16, U17. And just like you, coach came over and said, hey, I got players that are late. They will be here eventually. He says, I want you to start full rostered because they will be here eventually. And I said, done deal.
Yeah.
But I'm on your side here. If The other team, let me backtrack a little bit. Age needs to be in play here. If we're talking like academy level, U9, maybe U10 and below, I want it to be even.
Right.
Because they're going to get more benefit out of that. The issue with that may be I've got 13 kids on a 7v7 and you're having me take one more player off the field. That makes it more difficult for me. And I think that's where you're coming from here on your decision to go full roster is I already have a full roster. All of my players showed up. I shouldn't have to punish my team because one of your parents didn't get your player to the field either on time or at all.
And you bring up two really good points there. I had not thought about the age thing, and that hadn't really entered my mind. But you're absolutely right. And you bring up a great scenario. If I'm playing 7v7 and I already have a 13-player roster, I mean, subbing at that point is already a headache. Yeah. And now I'm going to have to do even more of that because you didn't get all your players here.
Right.
And we know things happen, and we'll be in this situation one day when we're the lesser team. I think for me, I would start full side, and then if it if it starts to get out of hand or we get up 4 or 5 goals, then I'm probably just gonna very discreetly grab one of my players, say, hey, come over here and stand with me, and then even up there. But I mean, like you said, I'm not going to penalize my team for something that we have no control over.
Yeah, and I have been on the other side of this. A few seasons ago, you're aware of this. I had a roster with 2 subs. If everybody showed up, I had 2 subs. And one game, I had one kid I knew was going to be out of town. Another kid had a trip going on. And then that morning, I swear to you, 10 minutes before the game starts, hey, I'm sorry, I can't get so-and-so to the game. So I'm a man down.
Right.
And I told my team, we're just going to play. They're going to play full field, and we're just going to go.
Yeah. And, I'd like to say there are some things that I feel a little differently about. One of them, Coach, what do you do if, hey, we start full-sided, 11v11 or whatever. Maybe the other team doesn't have any subs. So we're 11v11, we're playing, and they have a player injured during the course of the game. So now there is no choice. And we're not talking a red card here. We're not talking anything like that. A player has been injured. He's gone to the sideline, and it's clear that player is not going to re-enter the game. Are you dropping down then to even it up, or are you going to stay full-sided?
I think, again, this is dependent on age. If I'm at the U8, U9, and maybe even U10, I'm going to have a conversation with the coach and say, what do you feel comfortable with me doing? Yeah. And if he says, if you could go down a man, I would greatly appreciate it. I'll do it. However, if I'm in the older age group, if my team is there, and I say this because they understand the game a little bit more. Mm-hmm. It means a little bit more to them.
Yeah.
The wins and losses affect them a little bit more at the older age groups. And it's not their fault, again, if they're short on players for whatever reason it may be.
Right.
So the older age group, I'm playing on as if nothing's changed. And that's just my point of view of that.
Yeah, I think I am too. Again, some things are out of our control, and I understand that. But I think what you said earlier and I think you just said again, you're 100% right on. I'm not going to penalize my team for something that's going on with the other team.
Right. And just like my situation where I was a man down to start the game, I'm not going to tell that team, I need you to go to a man down. Right. That's not their problem. Yeah. And I never addressed it in that way. And they were like, are you sure? I'm like, you need to play your team the way you train, prepared to do.
Absolutely.
And we're just going to deal with it. It's my parents' situation. If they don't get their kids here on time, and let's just go and play.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Coach, that was a good conversation here. Next one, I don't think we deal with this a lot, but it happens. Dealing with an obnoxious or loud/aggressive opposing coach. Either he's screaming and yelling at the referee, he's screaming and yelling at his teammates, or he's just going ballistic on the sideline. How do you handle, do you get involved and say, hey, coach, or do you just sit back and say, I got my team. He's got his team. That's just the way it is.
That one, I think that's what I do. I think, maybe try at halftime or whenever try and address it with my team. Like, hey, look, we know he's being obnoxious, but we're just going to play our game and we're going to focus and do what we do best.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of hard when you don't see it coming and it happens after a kickoff, because then again it kind of goes back to your age thing. But even at the highest age, the older ages, they're going to be looking at this guy like, what is going on?
Yeah.
When it comes to getting involved, my answer to that is no, unless the comments are being made toward my players or to me.
That's exactly where I was going to head to myself.
If he's screaming and yelling at a 12-year-old girl on his team, is it wrong? Yes. Should it be happening? No. But unless it's like over the top, like cursing or insulting or something like that, then I'm probably going to stay out of it, because I don't know that relationship with him and his team. So I'm probably going to stay out of it, and unless I truly feel that okay, we crossed a line here.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% here. And my point of view is, if those parents are okay with that coach acting that way on the sideline in front of their own child, that's none of my business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, just like you said, if they're being degrading to an official or they're cursing at an official, and this is regardless of age, there might be a point in time where I say, hey, coach, it's time to bring it down a notch.
Yeah.
Regardless if they're winning, if they're losing, if it's just a tight-fought game. Maybe it's just, coach,
chill.
It doesn't need to be a yelling match. Like,
right.
Coach, let's bring it down a notch.
Yeah. It would be one of those, where I'm walking myself to the midline and kind of saying, hey, coach, come on.
Yeah, I agree.
But, I think this whole conversation changes, like you said, if it's directed towards my team or at me. If they're upset with something I'm doing, it's kind of like, okay, you coach your team, I'll coach mine. But I think there is a line there that if it's crossed, then I think as coaches we have an obligation to step in at that point.
Absolutely.
But I do think that line is pretty far away. I think for me to have to do that, it would have to be something pretty drastic.
Yeah, and again, if the parents are okay with that, number one, I'm baffled that's. And again, I haven't really ever dealt with that maybe once in my entire coaching career, where I was on the edge of speaking up to a coach. However, giving the official credit, the official walked over and said, "You need to calm it down. You're getting carded."
Yeah,
and credit to him. He did his job, but granted, he was a grown man.
Yeah.
It wasn't some 15-year-old kid being screamed at by a lunatic. But yeah, if the parents are okay with it, that is their business. And we're going to switch roles here a little bit. Yep. Let's say it's not a coach that's acting this way. It's one of the parents.
This goes to the question. I'm assuming we're talking about a parent from my team or a parent from the other team. Because if we're talking about a parent from my team and, I can hear it from across the field, then I do think something needs to immediately be done.
Absolutely. Well, here's the question. Let's say a ref missed a call in the box that should have been a penalty for your team.
Okay.
And one of your parents says, "How the F do you miss that? You're an effing idiot."
Yeah.
Do you say, "Hey, give me a timeout real quick," or do you wait till the game is over to have that discussion? Because obviously the discussion with that parent has to happen.
Yeah. Man, that's tough. I think if it is loud enough to where we hear it and it is with that language, I think you got to walk over and address it. I know that's hard, but then you can even make the point, hey, look, man, you have pulled me away from our team because I have to come over here and babysit you now.
That's the perfect word.
So now my girls are out there playing with no coach because you're over here acting like a fool. But again, they're just like we talked about with the obnoxious or loud, aggressive coach. Same way with the parent. do they cross that line? And the line for you and I may be different, but I think every coach has a line that, okay, if we cross this line, it's time for me to step up.
Yeah, I think the thing we need to discuss here is he dropping F-bombs to a 15-year-old?
Yeah.
That's rough in my game? Or is he saying this to a 45-year-old grown man?
Right.
The grown man is going to handle it better than the 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And if it needs to be one of those things where I say, hey, Charlie, no, let's bring it down a notch, that's not happening.
Yeah.
If shouting from the sideline.
Yeah.
Or I don't think either one of us wants to do this, getting on your phone, calling the parent and say, hey, I don't want to embarrass you or the ref or anybody else, but that's not happening again.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So there's different ways to approach this. I think it depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it depends on who the ref is that's getting yelled at. If it's a 15-year-old, it's got to be addressed right then and there. That's just unacceptable. If it's a grown man, I'm hoping that the official says something. If he doesn't, I'll probably wait after the game and have a private one-on-one conversation.
Well, and I think with this same type of thing, you need backup, and I think this is where you want to get your DOC involved or your principal involved or whoever to say, hey, I need you to come with me. You don't have to say anything, but I need you to come with me because I got to address this.
That's a great point because we have those parents that are repeat offenders.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily cussing somebody out, but they're confrontational.
Every game. Well, and here's the other thing that I think is so important in these moments. And our club is currently kind of talking about doing this, having some sort of parent contract or whatever.
Oh, right.
But there has to be a punishment for these recurring actions. Not punishment, there has to be a consequence. Hey, you are banned from the field this Saturday. You have a 1-game suspension.
Absolutely.
I think where that gets so difficult is upholding those things.
You've got to have a coach because the DOC isn't going to be at every single game.
Correct.
He's got his own situations going on. You've got to depend on your coaches to handle those difficult situations and be able to discuss it. DOC coach, discuss, hey, this is what we're going to do, and say, coach, can you handle this? If he can't, someone from the club has to be at that game to make sure that the message is
absolutely. Absolutely.
Brought forth to the team. Important discussion there, coach, but like I said, I don't deal with that a lot.
I haven't either.
A lot of novice coaches or parents, for the most part, everyone's just doing their thing, which I like to hear. Or if their confrontations are happening, it's happening outside the games.
Right.
So let's go to the next conversation here, Coach. It's what are your interactions before a game with other coaches?
Yeah, I attempt to say hi, even if it's just a quick wave. But, kind of get that vibe sometimes from other coaches when, okay, they don't want me to come over here and say anything. So that's when you kind of do the head nod or, throw a quick wave. Especially when you're the home team, I think that's kind of part of your job. And, we're calling this episode Coaching Etiquette. I think that's part of the coaching etiquette. Hey, welcome, glad you're here. Glad you made it safe. Our bathrooms are here, whatever, things like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is kind of becoming lost within our game.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let me give you my thing here. Just like you said, if I'm the host, if I'm the home team, I'm always walking to that coach and I'm shaking their hand. I will try to get there early so I can get them before they start doing their warm-ups and getting things set up.
Yeah.
Maybe they're getting all the bags on the sidelines, telling the kids put their water bottles here and there. That's when I'm trying to get over there and say, hey, I'm coach, having troubles getting here. Any questions for me? Get that, the initial conversation out of the way. And after that, I'm dealing with my team. He's dealing with his team, and we're off. When I'm there, I'm kind of dependent on that coach to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not like I'm judging them. Oh, well, if they're going to come talk to me. If they don't, they don't.
Right.
I'm a little disappointed that they don't, but if they're not going to talk to me, I'm dealing with my team as most of us are doing. Warm-ups, game started, and I'm moving on from there.
But don't you feel like, I'm just trying to rack my brain. my away matches last season and coaching 2 teams, I mean, I can count, less than 5 easy of the coaches who approached me when I was the away team and shook my hand and said, "Hey, welcome." I mean, again, this is kind of where I said that I feel like this is becoming a lost art in our game. It's that quick handshake after the game and maybe a couple words here and there, but that's it.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying there. And I'm not saying, I had intense conversations, but I feel like every team this past season, I had good conversations with every coach or coaches before the game. And I'm not saying we spoke for 10, 15 minutes. It's 5-minute, things going for your season, any issues going on. All right, good luck, guys. We'll catch you in a minute, But you're absolutely correct. We're losing that connectivity as humans, where it's, I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to be like the pros, but even the pros walk over to each other and shake each other's hands.
Absolutely.
Like, why do we have this mentality of you're my enemy and I'm not saying a word to you?
Yeah, I know.
I don't feel like, I hope I've never been that way. And I hope if somebody says that you used to be that way, that I've corrected that. But we need to respect each other as coaches and just have a quick handshake, a quick good luck. And that's all it really needs to be. If you want to go beyond that, great. But a simple handshake goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Somewhere down the road.
Absolutely.
All right, Coach, let's look at topic number 4. This is pretty common, I think, with all coaches, addressing an official during the game. Either he made a bad call, missed the call, like we said earlier, missed the penalty kick for my team. How do you discuss calls with the referee while a game is in play?
I think this is so hard because the game is happening, and running clock. You don't want to stop the time, and you don't want to pull an official over and talk to him for 4 or 5 minutes, especially if it's a tie game or you're losing and it's tight. So I think this is one of the harder topics we're going to discuss in this episode because it happened and they're human, and that's what you kind of got to keep telling yourself. I feel like, for the most part, I am pretty good with officials when it comes to the screaming and yelling portion of it. Now, that's not to say that I haven't had my moments, because we all have, of course.
Sure.
But the thing that does bother me is when there is kind of that natural stoppage, and I say, "Sir, can you come and talk to me real quick?" Whether it's a throw in or maybe it's a goal kick and they're chasing down the ball or whatever, but just that natural lull, and they refuse to do it. That is when I had this happen at a tournament this past spring, and that's when I kind of start to get hot. Like, that is part of your job, is to especially if I'm just saying, "Hey, what happened? What did you see? What did you call?" Like, I'm not arguing the call. I just want to know what the call was.
Sure.
And so, again, I think it's hard for both the coach and the official because you don't want to hold up the game. But I think good coaches and good officials are able to have those conversations really, really quickly to keep everybody happy.
I think this is a situation where you and I differ pretty drastically. We have coached together on the sidelines. You're very vocal, discussing stuff with the referees for whatever reason. I really don't pay much attention to the referees. Yeah. I'm more focused on my players. I'm one of those, he may have missed one call, but that's not why we lost the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of my mentality of it. And I'll tell my players that on the sideline, stop griping about the referee, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mistakes previous to that call could have negated any of those situations from happening in the first place. So now, I'm not saying I don't speak to referees. I think if he gives me a nod, "Hey, coach, give me a minute," or he comes over and speaks to me, or even if I don't like his explanation, I'm already moving on.
Yeah.
I think I've had one confrontation my entire coaching career, which I'll admit I got ejected from the game because I blew up, and because my player got injured that on a play he didn't call, so I'm not saying I'm validated, but
Right.
that was my reasoning behind it.
Right.
But that's the only time I've ever really got into it with an official. And believe me, there's been plenty of times that a referee has blown many calls in games that I've coached, and I think we've all dealt with that situation in our coaching careers. But as I said, it's more about my team and what we're doing or not doing rather than me fussing at a referee thinking he's the one that blew the game. I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, and honestly, how many times in the history of the game has a call cost a team a game? Now, it happens. It does happen.
Yeah.
But kind of like what you said, those, the moments leading up to that missed call or to that bad call are just as important as the call itself.
Absolutely.
And, I think that's hard I think it's a tough conversation because, you feel like, hey, I got to go to bat for my team. I got to go to bat for my team. So even if it's just to prove to them that, hey, I got your back. Coach has your back.
Sure.
And so I think that's kind of more where I come from. And when it comes to those conversations, that I need my players to understand that I got your back. And when something needs to be questioned, I'm the one that does it. Like say, I can't tell you how many times I look at players and say, stop talking to the official. That is not your job.
Sure.
But this is a tough one, and I think everybody handles it a little differently. The problem is we're getting to that side of things where it's too aggressive, it's too in your face, and now I know at least where we are, we are still dealing with the referee shortage because nobody wants to do it anymore.
Dude, I was just about to bring up that exact same comment. We've got to stop acting like these games affect people's lives.
Right.
At U10, they're going to go home and play with their friends.
Mm-hmm.
At U12, they're going to get in the car and go shopping with mom. Whatever it may be. We're not dealing with college and professional age where your life probably is a little more affected by a win and loss. So the other side of that is if you got a U11 team and you've got a 16-year-old coach on your coaching your game, we've got to be more understanding that he's learning to be a better referee.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe he doesn't even care.
Yeah.
Maybe that 16-year-old is just like, I'm just here to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
And you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't like it, go speak to the referee assigner or the club. And you just got to choose your battles.
Mm-hmm.
When is it right to stand up for your players? And when is it time to go above and beyond and let that ref know he screwed things up?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at U10, it's just not worth losing your mind over. And we've seen many parents lose their mind over in a U10 game where I'm more worried about their development rather than the wins and losses here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Coach.
Yeah, that's a great top there, Coach, and something that happens every game on how coaches address different officials there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Coach, let's look at our final topic here. Opposing coach confronting you during a game about your team decisions or some other team topic in the middle of a game.
Yeah, and we put this on here because this happened to me in a 3v3 tournament. I don't know how many of you are familiar with 3v3, but it is fast-paced, it's high intensity. You play 4 or 5 games in a day, maybe 5 or 6 if you're good, and that's the situation we were in. We had a really, really good 3v3 team. We played all day. We're playing in the championship game. You play these 10-minute halves, and normally what I do, and my girls know, they know it, we have 6 players, so it's 3 on, 3 off, and we mix and match before the game. So they're always playing with that same group, and I run 3 on, 3 off. And the first game, I might do 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, just rotate like that. But as you play, and again, this is high-intensity soccer. This isn't those moments where, you get to be that lazy striker for a little while because your team's playing defense, or you get to sit back as the goalie and, pick at the grass because your team's dominating offensively. This is everybody's playing at 100%. And so as the games go on, my subbing patterns get shorter. maybe by the semifinal game, I'm doing 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 1 minute on.
You have a system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your players understand the system.
Yep. So we get into the second half of this championship game, and it is a close game. But at halftime, I talked to the girls. Hey, I think I was doing it doesn't matter, 90 seconds or a minute or something like that, on and off. Said, hey, how are we feeling? And they said to me, it needs to be shorter. We're getting tired. So I dropped my subbing patterns and I'm sure it was annoying and frustrating. But again, I'm doing what my system, what our team has worked on.
Yeah.
And in the second half of the final game, I'm doing it minute on, minute off, minute on, and we're going. They're coming over, they're slugging some water, catching their breath, and then boom, they're back on the line.
Yeah. And
it gets to the point to where I get to just kind of coach and watch the game because they're doing it themselves.
Right.
But anyway, coach walks over to me, walks towards midfield, and he goes, Coach, are you just wasting time? Like, what are you doing? Stop wasting time. And I understand his point of view, but he thought I was doing this as a time waster. Mm-hmm. To which it kind of took me off guard.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something to the effect of, Coach, we are not wasting time. This is a system that we have in place. And then he even started going to the official about it. Like, he's subbing to waste time. And, I kind of just let it go. And then it helps that we ended up winning. So, that makes everything even better. But I don't think opposing coaches should be communicating with each other during a game for those reasons, just like that.
I agree with you 100%. And the fact that he said anything to you shows he was getting frustrated that he wasn't winning.
Yeah.
Because if he was winning, you think he's going to say anything to you?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
And he, again, calling it time wasting, these are small fields. It literally takes 2 seconds for them to get on and off the field.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. It's not like they're walking off, shaking hands.
They're not coming from the left winger position where they have to come all the way across the field. It's on and off. And so I was very frustrated by that, as you can probably tell in my voice. But, if I'm looking over, I'm like, hey, is your player okay? If there's been an injury, or, hey, coach, if I'm the home team coach, hey, coach, do you need ice? Hey, do you need, whatever. But outside of that,
when the game's going.
Yeah. And my soccer decisions for my team should not be any of your concern.
Yeah. His response to that should have been, stop focusing on what they're doing.
Yeah. Focus
on your job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that goes to your system was working.
Yeah.
Whether he likes it or not. I mean, just like you said, I've played 3v3 and I've coached 3v3. And you're sprinting 20 to 30 yards almost nonstop because it is a fast-paced game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of think of it as basketball. Somebody makes a hoop, they're sprinting to the other end to defend that goal. So, yeah, I think that coach was out of line by coming over and speaking to you. I've never had a coach confront me in the middle of a game. At least I don't recall anything like that happening. But hopefully it doesn't happen very often because that's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And really unprofessional.
Yeah, that's the word. It's unprofessional. It shouldn't be happening. The key here is about team decisions or gameplay. Like, stop.
Yeah.
The way we're playing the game is, again, we've used this word a lot this episode, but is that system that I have built with this team and these girls, and they know it, and I'm not going to change it because you're unhappy.
Yeah. All right, Coach. This has been the ACE Football Academy. Here we've been discussing coaching etiquette. If you've had any scenarios or topics that you've dealt with, send us some messages on Facebook. You can send us some messages on X, also known as Twitter. We would love to hear what situations you've dealt with yourself and, coaching etiquette that you've had to, implement into your game here. We want to thank our sponsor, A.C.E Car Wash, locally owned and operated. We are the ACE Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham. This is Coach Hamilton, and we'll catch you next time.
Go kick some ace.